People of Earth, we have come to upgrade your cosmic consciousness. DNA activation ready. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Lou Quinto.
And I am Craig Anderson.
Craig, we're going to talk about another assessment or a development technique that is really, it's caught fire again. It was popular back in the 90s and it's really become in vogue again, and that's emotional intelligence.
Really?
And yes, and we have Linda Comerford from Comerford Consulting, who I've had the opportunity to work with 12 years. And Linda brings a neat perspective to the emotional intelligence. She works, she's done hundreds of these, working with individuals, coaching them after they take their assessment to understand the emotional intelligence. Have you done the emotional intelligence?
I'm highly emotionally intelligent. I just decided. So I'm really just a little, this isn't an intervention or something, right? This is actually legitimately an interview.
No, it's
Okay.
not an intervention. We're not going to talk about your childhood or things like that, where emotional intelligence starts and it gets developed, almost similar to what we talked with Benjamin Papa with the Enneagrams, where this happens earlier in life. But emotional intelligence is something that we develop early in our lifetime. And so what emotional intelligence helps us do is to see how we react to different things. So let's go ahead and let's talk with Linda Comerford about emotional intelligence. Well, welcome, Linda Comerford. Welcome to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. Thanks for joining us.
You are welcome. It is truly my pleasure.
Sure. What we wanted to do today is talk to you about emotional intelligence. I know, and Craig and I have had this discussion in the past, that it's been around for a while, but it seemed like it went on hiatus for I will say almost a decade or two, and it's starting to reemerge. So why don't I ask you to also give us a little bit about yourself. Start off by telling us, how did you get into the emotional intelligence?
Well, it's interesting. As you said, it started out a long time ago. I actually first got introduced to the concept watching either Oprah Winfrey or Dr. Phil. And they had these adorable little kids in preschool or kindergarten, and they had all these cookies in front of them. And the teacher said, you cannot touch any of these cookies. And if you do, that will not be good. If you touch them, you're in trouble. So, and then they gauged little children's emotional intelligence by watching the kids squirm, and they'd lean forward and they'd lick them and they'd do all kinds of things. And it was just torture for some kids not to just gobble up those cookies, while other kids just sat there very patiently. And that's where emotional intelligence first intrigued me. Then from there, I didn't go any further with that because I've done training for the last 30 years with writing skills and presentation skills, customer service, anything relating basically to written and oral communication skills. And then one of my clients, for whom I had done writing skills for a while, said, Linda, do you do anything with emotional intelligence? And I said, no, I don't, but I'm really interested in it. And they said, could you create a program for us? And that was 4 years ago. And the rest is history. Now I'm busy doing that more than any of the other courses that I used to do, because there's just such a need for it. Let me ask you guys one question, and all of you out there. Yeah, Lou, go.
No, I was going to go ahead, ask us questions.
Okay, Craig, Lou, how many times have you met people where you've realized, wow, Mensa type person, genius, brilliant, but their emotional social interactions with each other, not so good. And you're thinking, I'm impressed with this guy or gal, but I don't really like this person a whole lot. Interpersonally, they're just kind of a zero. Have you met people like that?
Yeah, well, that's how I met Craig.
Yeah, I was going to say almost weekly, Linda, almost weekly. So,
well, more and more people would answer the same way as Craig just did. Lou, not necessarily calling out Craig, but that's what happened. More and more people started, especially in leadership roles, started showing their brilliance, but you just couldn't interconnect with them. So that led to the people that the leaders led not being that happy to be part of those teams. Think about the interactions with the customers, clients that companies would have. So all of a sudden somebody said, you know what, I think we need to get going on emotional intelligence. That led to a program that's pretty famous. It's based around 4 different quadrants. And that's the one that I first explored. And I'm not going to mention its name, but if you're interested in this topic, I don't recommend that you take that approach. Instead, the approach that
Are we discussing a social styles type program?
no, this really doesn't have it. It's billed as emotional intelligence, and it's really that 4 quadrants is how well do you know yourself and how well do you get along with others. So there are 4 quadrants that revolve around that. The program that I like to do instead, I'll hold this up and I hope your viewers can see this, revolves around a wheel. I'm highly visual, and when I saw this, I was like, oh yes, I love this. And it revolves around 5 what Multi-Health Systems, the organization who developed this particular program, calls composites. First composite is your self-perception.
Right.
Foundational, what do you know about yourself and your emotions? From there, you go to the self-expression composite. Think about this. That means, how do you come across to others? Craig, Lou, have you thought about that?
Since middle school, I've had issues worrying about that.
Craig still hasn't learned.
What do you do with it, right?
Yeah. I've been socially awkward for a long time.
That's a good one. And Lou, you've never had a socially awkward moment in your life.
Not that I can remember.
I could share a few, but I won't. This is not about you. It's about emotional intelligence. So you have how you come across to others. And again, Craig, Lou, and all of you out there, think about times when you've been, let's say, in a meeting and emotions start to flare and things start to get a little contentious. And you see Craig say something and you think, oh Craig, don't say that because Lou is going to respond with, and then Lou responds and you're thinking, don't say it, Lou, and Lou's jumping right in there, more flare, more drama, and then Craig gets even more annoyed and you're thinking, dial it down, guys. And where you just watch people, married couples perhaps interacting, and you see them starting to get bickery with each other, and you're thinking, wife, don't say that to the husband. It's going to start him back picking at you and bickering, and you know what I'm talking about. You've seen that?
Yeah.
Experienced that?
Craig goes, yeah, I've seen it.
Have you lived it?
Yeah, I've lived in corporate too, as a matter of fact, multiple times.
Don't say that, and then they do. That is the emotional self-expression. That's where you're not really that concerned about how you come across to others. You're just in the moment, and somebody pressed a button, one of your hot buttons, and boom, off you go. Third composite is called the interpersonal composite. That asks you to assess for yourself, how do you interact with others? It's different how you come across to others than how you interact with others. And I'll get to more about that in a moment. Right. And then I pretty much jumped up and down when I found out the 4th composite, which is called decision making. And Lou, this ties into decision making and problem solving, which I know is a skill and an interest of yours. And where the decision making part of emotional intelligence might differ just a little bit from what you teach. This is what happens when you're trying to problem solve when emotions are present.
Right.
If you have some kind of an issue, Craig, you were talking about in meetings that's non-emotional, sure, you can all sit back and calmly debate it. But let the emotions flare up and the decision-making skills become weaker and weaker as the emotional expression deteriorates.
Right.
Then the last composite, which is where I literally did jump up and down and do the happy dance, which I will not do now because it's not the greatest to see, but it was like, yay, because the last composite is stress management. And when I teach my classes, I will say to people, we have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. And I know none of you have stress, so we'll probably just skip that composite, right? And everybody's like, no, please start with stress management. Please end with it. People are just so overwhelmed with stress. And remember, I started this program before COVID.
Right.
So much of it now ties into how people are reacting to COVID in their lives. So it's really been powerful. It's been life-changing for me. And I like to think it has been for my clients as well.
Okay, good. Where's the basis of emotional intelligence come from?
take two. I'd have to do some quick research on that, Lou.
Okay. All right. Okay. All
Can you
right.
cut that out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No problem.
I know
Yeah.
it started a long time ago with some kind of research, but I don't have that answer.
Just next time, just say with God. That'll throw Lou off.
It'll throw Lou off. Okay.
You want to do that again? I'll say with God.
So let me ask this, Linda. When it comes to emotional intelligence,
Yes.
what is the role that it can play in individual and leadership development?
Great question, Lou. Thank you. Emotional intelligence first starts with that self-perception composite. It's how you regard yourself, your goals for your life, etc. So it all does definitely start at the personal level. Now, for me with self-regard, I was chuckling at Craig saying he's been socially awkward since middle school. Yeah, a lot of people can relate to that. And even though we laughed about that, those kinds of things can affect how you regard yourselves. So what I was excited about was seeing what multi-health systems uses as their definition for self-regard. Self-regard is not just all the great things about you. And if things in your life aren't so great right now, then wow, your self-regard just plummets. That's not how this works. You can have, I was amazed to learn, high self-regard when things are great and you have skills that just would make a 10-page resume, because you have so many skills, but also your weaknesses. And I like their approach to how you can have high self-regard with your weaknesses. The approach is start to list those weaknesses and then ask yourself, do those really matter? For example, one of my big weaknesses, and Lou knows this, I am a terrible cook. If I like you, I will not invite you to my house to cook for you. I will take you out to dinner. Lou is a great cook. Now, that's always been a weakness of mine that I've been embarrassed about. For example, when I would go to church occasions and it'd be a pitch-in, people at our church, I'm Lutheran, would make these amazing dishes. What I would do is I would go to a grocery store, buy potato salad, put it in a Corningware dish. Lou, I've done it when I went to your house, sprinkle paprika on it. And then there I was.
What? I thought that you made that yourself.
Well, I fooled you, didn't I? So, because I felt bad. I didn't want you to know I couldn't make potato salad. I've never done that, to be honest with you. I've never even made real mashed potatoes, but I digress. So that's what I've assessed that with is that really a big deal that I can't cook? No, I go to restaurants, help keep them in business. Life is good. But there are other things about me that are truly weaknesses that are holding me back. Like one thing I really want to start exploring more is time management, because I feel like I'm doing a lot more than I ever have, but it's taking me longer than it should to do it. That's a weakness. So I can still have high self-regard because I have a plan for how to take care of my need to better set priorities. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
One other skill that relates to that, I'm going to actually read this to you all because it's so important. And Lou, you and I share a client where that client has said to me, Linda, when you do your workshops for us, please stress this more and more with all the groups that you work with, especially ones just say out of college, is your emotional self-awareness. And listen to this definition. It includes recognizing and understanding your emotions. Okay, Linda, great. Yeah, we figured that out. But it also includes the ability to differentiate between subtleties in your emotions while understanding what causes those emotions. How many times do we sit back and reflect on, why do I actually react emotionally the way I do? What causes that? And the impact those emotions of yours cause on your thoughts and actions, along with the thoughts and actions of others. So there's a lot in that definition, but we're talking about leadership here.
Right.
We're going to be springboarding into that. Can you see how that definition alone, what causes me to feel the way I do, and how do my emotions in the moment, which could change in 5 minutes, depending on the person, how is my self-indulgence with those emotions of mine affecting other people around me, both professionally and personally? So there's a lot going on with that. So we delve into that. And then I guess that leads into leadership, which is the name of your podcast, right? At least I heard that word in there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you talked a little before about the highly intelligent person that can't really hold on to the conversation, and but I've seen different kinds of what I would consider low emotional intelligence in leaders from hubris and arrogance to the kind of robotic, can't connect emotionally. I'm guessing, so how does this manifest in your leadership style? How does this what is the interplay between emotional intelligence and leadership?
That again is a great question, Craig, and that would again revolve around these 5 composites that he's talked about. And then each of those 5 composites have 3 related sub-skills. With self-perception, I just talked about self-regard and your emotional self-awareness. One of the quick connections that comes to mind in terms of leadership is the second composite, which deals with the way you express yourself emotionally. And Lou, you and I talk about the 3 V's
Right.
of emotional expression. Go ahead, you can show up.
The verbal, the vocal, and the visual. Yeah.
Exactly. And what are the percentages that go along with them? What's the impact that we get from the visual, et cetera?
Verbal is 7%, vocal is 38%, and visual is 55%.
Yeah, very good. A+. I wish I had my little candy. I actually have my little gold coins that I had to use to get a gold coin for that. With my virtual style, I can't give real candy out anymore. So think about that. The visual and the vocal add up to 93% of the way you come across to others. Only 7% comes across in the words you choose to use.
Right.
So you're a leader, and you mentioned arrogance, Craig, and you're sitting there with your arms folded or the steeple position, being all arrogant in a meeting and leading it, and people are, and just your tone of voice. So Craig, what's going on in your department? And you start, I'm not interested in that. That's not what I wanted to hear from you. And you got this tone of voice like, yeah, go ahead. And you're all sarcastic. Sure, Craig, great idea. You know what I'm talking about, where people feel diminished just with your tone of voice, along with perhaps the words you choose to use. So when leaders recognize that 93% of the way they come across to others comes across in their body language, smile helps, and their tone of voice, it can make a difference in helping them dial things down. And then from there, let's segue into one of the other skills, which is assertiveness. I love the definition of assertiveness that Multi-Health Systems has us work with, and that is being direct. Yep, I got it. That's assertive, but it's being direct with respect. And when you put that into context, I think you can see how some of those leaders who have low emotional intelligence can still feel their need to be assertive, because that's probably a skill and emotion they're quite proud of. But when you temper the assertiveness that I'm sure everybody's seen become aggressiveness, when you put in the with respect part, it helps automatically dial some of that down.
So let me ask, as an example, would the assertiveness without respect be go do that? And the assertiveness with respect be, would you mind doing that?
That's one great example about it, but it's also the tone of voice. If you and I are bickering back and forth, arguing about something,
Right.
I have my opinion, you have your opinion, and I'm going to get my opinion across, and we're trying to interact and negotiate a business deal together. And the more forceful you get, the more aggressive you get with your opinion, the more forceful I get with mine. And
Sure.
Eventually I'm not respecting you or your opinion at all.
Right.
So it's just watching the tone of voice and just saying, okay, Lou, look, obviously we're differing about this, but I think we're actually more alike than we are different.
Right.
I'm going to have to stand firm on point number 1, but I can give on points 2 and 3. How do you feel about that? And then you ask and you give it back to the other person and help them feel included. So I'm not going to give up on point number 1, but hopefully we'll resolve our differences on those other points and still remain friends in the process.
So it's not what you say, but how you say it, which is a principle that we teach in presentation skills as well. So yes, okay.
Kissing up to the teacher, Lou, with all this.
I didn't bring my apple today. I'm sorry.
I loved your socially awkward comment in middle school.
Thank you.
So you get a gold coin too. Yes.
I can think of a time I was in a meeting. I was with another person who was kind of running the meeting, and it was a difficult conversation with somebody, a kind of a performance conversation. And the person we were having the conversation with kept escalating and rising and raising their voice and really wanted to get into the fight, because that's how, he was an intimidator. And I'll never forget the guy who was with me he said, look, I can continue to raise my voice, but that's not going to get us to where we need to be or solve the problem that we're discussing.
Right.
So you need to bring it down, or maybe we just need to move this meeting to another time.
Well, geez, that just sounds like a dinner at my house growing up. I mean, we all just got louder and louder just because we wanted to make a point or be heard. But that's the Italian New Jersey. So
Italian New Jersey. Yeah, Brooklyn, New York, similar. That's exactly the way it was in my home as well. But that truly is exactly what we're talking about. As soon as you gave that gold coin example, Craig, my mind immediately went to, he just illustrated direct with respect.
yeah.
Right.
So everybody keeps their dignity.
So let me ask you a question here, because we kind of jumped over it, but how do we discover our emotional intelligence? What are they called? Levels? Do we do a written assessment? How is that done?
Okay, you've got the 5 composites and then the skills that go along with them. So there are 15 sub skills. And by the way, if I forget your question, Lou, bring me back. But one thing I want to mention that you also, yes, there is an assessment. All right, back up, Linda. Yes, to answer your question, Lou, there is an assessment. I actually have my report here.
Okay.
You answer 134 questions that
Ooh,
have been, it takes 20 minutes at the most, that have been authenticated and validated scientifically in ways that curl my hair without a perm, because I have no interest in that kind of stuff, but it tested for years and years. So it's not the kind of assessment where you can psych it out and go, oh, I think this is the answer they're going to, because I want to look like I'm assertive or whatever the case may be. So you take that assessment and then you get a workplace report that gives you your assessment. And here's mine. It shows you with this, again, I love the colors. It shows you with this beautiful bar chart or graph or whatever, exactly where I am high and low in my emotional intelligence. And down here, this little blue bar down here is pretty much what I'm lowest in. And that is impulse control.
right.
Yeah, you've seen me in action with that.
Okay,
I think
good.
it, I say it, I do it. So I know I'm
Right.
working on that now. So
Yeah.
there's your starting point. Go
So
ahead.
I was just going to ask, is when people get these assessment results,
Yes.
is it like they're reading a horoscope where it's like, wow, that is me? Or
Yeah.
do you get pushback saying this isn't me, because they've got this idea that they're somebody completely different, that they believe that they are respectful when they're, being direct with people. So what's your most common reaction that you get from folks?
Well, not only do I do workshops on this, but the ideal is when clients are also willing to invest.
Right.
Once they spend money on, but invest in these. They cost $70 and then allow me one-on-one coaching sessions, which
Okay.
I've done hundreds of. And
Right.
I would say out of those, if maybe 5 or 6 people have said, wait a minute, this surprises me, this isn't me, it's been a lot. And if that does come up, it's usually on 1 or 2 of the skills where they'll say, yeah, I really think that's me, except my independence score was super low.
Right.
And I think I tend to be more independent than that. And then these definitions are some of the best I have ever seen. You get definitions of all 15 of the skills. And then when I read the definition to them of independence, which relates to kind of emotional dependency, and they're thinking, oh, I answered that like I'm an engineer and sometimes I won't understand how a circuit's supposed to work. And I will go to my boss and I will say, how do the widgets and the thingamajibbits and all that work together in this particular circuit? And I need to get information from my boss or teammates about that. And I may need to go back 2 or 3 times because I just don't know about this particular project. That's what I thought made me low in independence.
Right.
And I would say that's a different kind of independence. We're talking, are you emotionally dependent too much on your boss or your team? And then they go, oh, well, that explains. They answer the questions wrong. If the scores really don't match up, I also receive a coach's report,
Right.
which shows all 134 questions and how you answered them. And
Oh,
I'm not
wow.
allowed to, I'm not allowed to give all the results with the questions because it's proprietary to multi-health systems, but you and I can go through independence and I can say, Lou, okay, for these 7 questions on independence, here it is. And I'll ask you the questions and you rate yourself from 1 to 5. And what I really like about this assessment versus that 4-quadrant one I talked about earlier, the other one you can psych out the answers to, and that one had answers of never or always. I get suspicious when I have to choose an answer that's always and never. I thought that was a test in the other emotional intelligence, that 4-quadrant one. I was trying to avoid saying
Right.
always and never because I thought they were trying to trap me that way. This, you rate yourself on never or rarely or always or almost always. So it gives you some flexibility on your answers on a scale of 1 to 5. So I will read a question on independence and I'll say, Lou, what do you think? And you say, well, right now I give myself a 4. And I said, well, you gave yourself a 2 back then. And we'll debate what the difference was, because when you take the assessment can make a difference as well, if something's going on in your life. So but it's pretty accurate. And most people say, wow, I knew that. And going back again, I love the Craig socially awkward since middle school. You have that you're carrying around, and then you say, okay, I know this about me. Now, what do I do about it?
Right.
And that's where the class and the coaching help you come up with practical solutions that you then.
Continuing to be socially awkward is not really optimal. So let me pivot a little bit, going back a little to the vocal, verbal, visual, if I've got that right. And I have the percentage.
You did. You did.
I think of interest maybe to our viewers is, if we're thinking about that in this current era, as you talked about, you're doing all your workshops now through this Zoom forum. How much are we losing when we've got 10 boxes on a screen for a staff meeting on those key things that convey that emotional intelligence? How is that causing problems for your clients right now, or is it?
Here's something. I'm not a gotta have my way kind of person a lot of the time, but to you two and viewers, I really have a problem when people turn their cameras off, leave them off during Zoom calls. That loses 55% of the impact automatically when you have your cameras off. And it takes a while to do the hair and the makeup, ladies. I understand that, but that's not the point of trying to be as productive as you can be in the business world. And I've seen people hide behind these cameras. Do you know there are actually plastic surgeons now who are making a business doing plastic surgery on people who've seen them, I'm serious, Lou, who've seen themselves in Zoom calls, don't like what they see, and are now getting plastic surgery so they can look better with their cameras on. This is ridiculous. So yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I have a real problem with cameras.
The funny thing is they've always looked like that. They are looking in the mirror now. Well, but it's not just, Linda, from the participant standpoint, it's from individuals like you, Craig, and I, who are doing these presentations to groups of people, where I know initially when we went into COVID, it was like death by PowerPoint training, whereas, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Everyone was just watching PowerPoint slides go ahead. And about 6-7 months into it, I said, no, I can't do this anymore, because I want people to see me, because I want engagement to be high. And I actually have a monitor now that I have behind me, and I do a virtual presentation like I'm delivering the news, where my PowerPoint is behind me and they can see me. They can see my facial expressions. They see my gestures. And I can tell you that the engagement has increased. The questions during the webinars have increased significantly as well. So it's not just on the participant side, it's on the presenter, our side too.
Oh yeah, and actually I don't know about you, Lou, but I've been asked to do programs now in how to help people in the business world make their meetings more interactive.
Right.
So it's not just I'm the leader and I have my agenda of 10 topics that are up there on the PowerPoint slide and I do all the talking. And yeah, they're actually playing little games and doing things to involve and engage each other. And some people are saying we like our virtual meetings better than we liked our live ones. And I said, well, good. Hopefully, God willing, we're going to go back to not having to do so much of this stuff virtually and keep what you learned from the virtual meetings that were involved in engaging and all that. And bring them into live meetings.
Okay. Well, I've got one more question because I'm watching our time here. And this sounds more personal development than group development. Am I correct in that statement?
What,
see, I was being polite, assertive there, where I was asking if,
yes, you were very polite.
If I was correct in that.
Quit trying for the coins, Luke. Good.
Okay.
Uh,
So you're saying emotional intelligence is more
Yeah,
personal,
it's more. It sounds more personal development versus group development. If I'm a manager and I want all my folks to go through this, I'm not going to read through all of their reports and everything to know. This is on the personal development side, as opposed to as a manager. I don't know how many people I have that fall into the different five areas that you were talking about. I don't know that specific, that I can then have better team collaboration.
Well, I have an answer that might surprise you on that. Even though these reports are supposed to be confidential, most of my clients now do just the opposite. So let's say, Craig, I work for you and you've got your assessment and I have mine. And this works for performance appraisals too. It's wonderful. You and I get together and Craig, you show me yours and say, here's where I'm high, here's where I'm low. How can I interact better with you, Linda? How can we have interpersonal skills? Now that you know, how can you help me have more impulse control, whatever the case may be? And then I show you mine. And some managers are actually saying, okay, set some goals for yourself going forward about which scores you want to raise, lower, and then balance the way they interact. So we work together on that. And I have one manager who brought me in with her customer service team. So they all took the class together.
Right.
And now when they come in with she said, they don't have customer service issues with their customers. They're great, but they're really not so great with each other. If someone comes in and says, Craig, I have a problem with Phyllis over there, she's blah, blah, blahing. And then Craig will say, okay, that's your problem. What are you going to do about it? In the good old days before emotional intelligence, she would have to solve the problems. She felt like a mother to her whole team. And now she'd say, okay, what emotional intelligence skills are going on there that you're having that conflict with Phyllis? And
Right.
which the emotional intelligence skills are you going to use to help you solve that problem? And she has far fewer problems now with her team to resolve, but it's everybody combines and they talk about them, and it's really powerful the way it all works, both with leadership as the leader and then as the teams collaborating with each other, with their leaders, with the clients. It really encompasses everything, and it helps at home as well. I'll tell one more quick story, Lou, about a client where it was dealing with a bunch of scientists, engineering type technical people. And when I got to empathy, by the way, you might find it interesting to know that the research at Multi-Health Systems shows that the biggest predictor of success in the business world is empathy. And as you can imagine, both engineers aren't the most empathetic people in the world. Bankers actually are the least empathetic, according to research. So back to this technical environment, when I was
Okay, Craig, we've just answered that now.
is that your area?
That's what I used to do. Yeah, I used to work in banking.
That's how I got started in this, was, as I said, through a bank with their leadership, not being people that anybody else would want to work for. People were quitting, and so now people are staying on the job thanks to this. But these engineers, when we got to empathy, they were like, don't even talk to me about my empathy score. Nobody on my team would like it. If I were empathetic, they would look at me like I had two heads. And so they were ranting and raving about that in this class of 25 people. And I said, well, how about at home? Oh, no, the little woman's just fine. No, doesn't need any more empathy. So I let it go. I wasn't going to have a confrontation with a whole class over this. So then came the one-on-one coaching, and there were 3 engineers who had been particularly vocal about this in class. So I started the coaching call with, relax, gentlemen, one at a time. Relax, Greg, we're not going to talk about empathy. And this guy, all 3 of them said, no, we want to start with empathy. I said, I know you hate it. No, we actually like it now. They had reflected on what they learned in class and analyzed their team members person by person to say, maybe they had 10 people. So these 5 or 6 guys, I really don't have a need for empathy. I'm good with that. And they actually checked in with their staff about that. But the others, they said, maybe they would be more productive and we'd all get along better if we were more empathetic.
Right.
Turned out to be true. And they said, our marriages, oh, wow. And I thought, oh, don't get into too many details here. I'm going to start blushing. Things were so much better with their marriages. So this really connects. And the last skill you get in your assessment report is the 16th score they give you is your happiness indicator. It shows you how happy you are in your life, which I think is great information for us to all have. So there's just so much more I could tell you, but do I have time for one more story about how it's?
Actually, no.
Oh, shoot. Next time, maybe.
Because we're on a hard stop on this one.
I got it.
So anyway, let's go into then key takeaways. Craig. Your volume's on. Okay, so
That was a great takeaway. That was
Yeah.
gold coin. I love that one.
Yeah. So let me go into key takeaways. Craig, what's your key takeaway?
My key takeaway is bankers have the lowest level of emotional intelligence, and it explains so much about being in sales, why my bosses drove me crazy when I had very emotional clients.
Right.
It's mostly empathy, but yes, emotional intelligence in general, but mostly empathy.
Yes.
Lou?
Yeah. No, my key takeaway is, again, this is another piece to the personal development puzzle. We've talked about, the imposter syndrome in a past episode. We talked about Enneagrams.
Yes.
We're now talking about emotional intelligence. And so for everyone out there who's looking to develop their leadership skills, for viewers and listeners, this is yet another piece of that puzzle. So Linda, what's your key takeaway?
I actually use the word puzzle when I talk about people.
Good.
Can I tell my story quickly as my key takeaway?
Sure, go ahead.
Person I know well, you have met her, Lou. She's a leader, super fabulous. But with these 3 emotional intelligence skills, she couldn't be all that she could be. Super high in self-actualization, goals for herself, goals for her team, tons of goals. Low self-control though, and low empathy. So picture that kind of person and ask yourself, how would you like to work for a person who has goals that are changing constantly and you can't even keep up with her, and she has low impulse control and low empathy? She wasn't as effective as she thought she was being once she saw those high and low scores. So for self-impulse control, what she did was she bought herself a coffee cup that had a handle on the end of it. And she would come into her team meetings and start with, "Good morning, happy Monday. How you all doing?" And they'd say, "Fine." She would talk about one item and say, "I changed my mind since last Friday. We're not going to do this differently. What do you all think?" She used to wait about 2 seconds. Nobody answered. She'd jump in and tell them what they were supposed to think. Now she sits back, grabs her coffee cup and says, "Here's the new process. What do you all think?" And she forces herself to grip the handle of that coffee cup and shut up.
Yeah.
They are now all talking, participating, and life is
Sure.
much better for everybody. So that's how it works, Lou and Craig. And I've enjoyed every minute with you guys. Thank you, and you viewers out there.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. But do us a favor real quickly. How can people get in touch with you, Linda, if they want to learn more about emotional intelligence and some of the other services that you provide?
You may contact me through my website, which is Linda, Linda, at Comerford Consulting, COM as in Mary, ER. Wait, are you going to have this up on a graphic? Do I have to tell all this stuff?
Yeah, but for our podcast people, they're
Okay.
listening.
Take 3. Okay. You may contact me through my website, which is Linda at comerfordconsulting.com, COM as in Mary, ER, Ford like the car, consulting, all one word, .com. Or you may call me at 317-696-4444. My phone number is a lot easier than my website. Email address is linda@comerfordconsulting.com as well.
Terrific.
I'd love to hear from all of you. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we
Thanks,
appreciate you spending some time with us today on Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership, educating us on emotional intelligence. Thank you, Linda.
You're
Bye, Linda.
welcome.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Lou, that was a great interview with Linda. I learned, I think we used to call that EQ. Now we're back to emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Because it's emotional quotient.
Yes.
Well, just like it's IQ, this is EQ.
EQ. Well, I do need to go back. Not that I'm emotionally stunted or competitive, but I would like to go back and see who got more gold coins. Maybe that's just me.
Yes, Linda likes to give out her gold coins.
All right, I'm pretty sure I won. So thank you everybody for watching this episode of Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. As always, you can find us every Thursday with new episodes on our LinkedIn channel, Facebook channel, YouTube channel, as well as all your favorite podcasting platforms and our website, QAleadership.com. You have no excuse not to catch the latest episode of Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. And when you listen to it, leave us some comments on whatever platform you use. Let us know what you think of the episode and what you'd like us to cover in the future. So until next time, I'm Craig Anderson.
And keep your hands washed. Keep your distance. I'm Lou Quinto.